Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teacher professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside, of course, each and every week is none other than Legends Tour player and LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. How are you doing this morning, Cindy?
I'm doing great. There's a little bit of white stuff on the ground here, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's getting that time, isn't it? It's getting to the time where that white stuff tends to come in. And I heard actually this morning on the news that there may be some more coming your way. So it may be for some anyways, it may be a white Christmas after all, for some anyways. But all right, we got a great show for this morning. We're going to be joined here in just a moment by a good friend of the show, Mike Nichols, Chief Business Officer of the LPGA Symetra Tour. And then a little bit later on, Marvol Barnard is going to be joining us. She's the National President of the LPGA Professionals. She'll be joining us on the second half. So let's bring Mike on, and let's kind of get a status of what's been happening on the Symetra this season and what we've got planned for next year. So please welcome our very special guest, Chief Business Officer of Symetra Tour, Mike Nichols.
Good
morning, guys. How are you?
Doing great. Are you in sunny Florida?
I am in sunny Florida. We're looking to make our way up to Virginia to hopefully put our skis down on some of that white stuff you were talking about here. So fortunately, it looks like it's getting cold enough so if they don't get the real stuff, they can blow the fake stuff. So we're certainly looking to a little off season, and I know my kids are looking forward to skiing. So hopefully it works out.
Hopefully it does.
Very good. So Mike, let's. I guess first thing, let's talk about this year. It's been, to say the least, a very unusual year all the way around, a very difficult year for many. And I know earlier on in the season, decisions had to be made, and you talked about some of them earlier in the season when you came on. Maybe you can kind of just give us a refresher of what really went on with the Symetra Tour this year, what some of the changes you had to make, and then sort of how the season went once it did get up and running.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to obviously qualify everything that I'm going to say here is that, in the world of, we're running professional golf tournaments, and there are, people who have bigger concerns in life right now than, the state of, women's professional golf and the Symetra Tour. So, I certainly want to sort of thoughts and prayers out to everybody who's dealing with various levels of what's going on in the pandemic, whether it be, their health or their jobs or all of that kind of stuff. So, obviously with all of that sort of as a backdrop, admittedly the season was a challenge. It's when you sort of get into running golf tournaments and a tour for a living, the idea is that it's going to be something that is fun and you enjoy doing every day. And, the classic sort of saying that, if you have a job you love, you don't work a day in your life. And this would be one of those years where it felt like maybe you had to work a little bit harder than some of the others. But we're proud of what we accomplished. So sort of as a quick recap, we played one event at the end of February, sort of early March, and that's obviously when it was all swirling. And, we had hand sanitizer out on every tee and all of that kind of stuff. But that was really the extent of what we were doing at that point. And then a couple weeks later it hit, and so both the LPGA, who was a little bit ahead of us because the LPGA had to cancel some events in Asia first because Asia seemed to be a little bit ahead of us. So they were already canceling events. And so then when we were sort of stopped cold in our tracks when it sort of came home to roost here in the States. So we took however many months off it was, so the end of February, and I think we got started playing again late June, early July. And so we took that time off. But we had originally gone out with a 20-event schedule, and we ended up playing 9 times after our break. So we played a total of 10 times, which also required us to push the season about a month later. But all in all, we implemented a policy where our players and staff and caddies and anybody who was going to be in close proximity to players at the golf course were all tested in advance. So we had, we tested over 1,800 people in advance of traveling to the event sites, and we only had 9 positives, which is, less than 0.5%. So, obviously the things we put into place worked, kept everybody safe. We were able to play those 9 events. Frankly, we started in Michigan, which sort of continues to be one of the strictest from a government standpoint. And then we took a couple weeks off and went to California, which is also very strict. So, I felt like once we got through those 2 states, we were going to be good the rest of the way. And so we played those 9 times and graduated 5 ladies, actually 4. One of the players, Kim Kaufman, who was one of our 5 card earners, already had LPGA status. So we put 4 additional players into the LPGA membership pool, and then additionally those 5 players also had the opportunity, thanks to the United States Golf Association, to compete in the U.S. Women's Open this week. So it was a long and grueling year, and obviously the LPGA is wrapping up its season this week as well, and so we're all certainly look forward to a break and hopefully turning a new page in 2021, as everybody is in all aspects of life, obviously.
Yeah, well said. And it has been. It's again, I agree with what you said to start things off. I mean, it's been extremely challenging and very difficult for so many people, and we've been, Cindy and I have talked many times on the show that we've been very, very blessed in the golf industry this season. We were one of the very few industries that have really, actually increased during this difficult time. And so we're very, very fortunate and very blessed to have, been able to, see a rise in golf. And, we've had the pleasure, as you know, Mike, we interviewed quite a few of the winners on the Symetra Tour. Obviously not as many this year because of the restrictions and so forth, but and they've all taken it well in stride. What's been some of the feedback from the players and even some of the sponsors that you worked with this year? Obviously, you had to delay or cancel in many cases some of the tournaments or push them off, down the road. What's been some of the feedback from both camps?
Yeah, I would say from a player standpoint, universally grateful for what, they could obviously see all the work that was going on behind the scenes and administering the tests and all the sort of the protocols we put into place. And so, when we obviously shut down the season for whatever it was, 3 or 4 months, you kind of, probably everybody, right, realizes how quickly it can all be taken away. And so maybe some of the things that might be sort of a nit or the things that might bother the player one week, when you come back and you're playing, that stuff, you forget about that because you're just so grateful to be playing. From the player's standpoint, I think they were just happy to be out playing golf. As Cindy can attest, and then when you're on the golf course and you're playing competitive golf, you can kind of shut out the rest of the world, so it kind of becomes a safe place in many cases for players who are playing at that level. So they were very grateful and understood that the staff was working twice as hard to put together a season that was half as long. But so from that standpoint, it was great. And then there wasn't a sponsor who was with us this year for any of the tournaments who didn't want to be with us. So if for whatever reason, whether it was state regulations or the title sponsor didn't feel like they couldn't get their guests in or didn't like the optics of playing during a pandemic or whatever, we just said, hey, let's just push off for a year. So of the 9, and we had a number of people who took us up on that option, which is totally understandable, and we obviously worked with them on that. But we still had the 9 folks that played with us. They wanted to play, and in many cases, it was interesting. The feedback we got was they realized how important these tournaments were to these players. If you're a sponsor of a Symetra Tour event, you really have bought into sort of the mission about what this tour is about and providing these opportunities for these young ladies who are extremely talented, who maybe haven't had the opportunity necessarily to break through onto the LPGA Tour. And so for a lot of them that stuck with us, they just said, I would see them during the week of the event and thank them for what they're doing. And they said, we felt like we needed to do this for the ladies. And so that, that's really a tribute, I think, to a couple of things. One, obviously the the sort of the loyalty of the sponsors that we have, but also, when somebody comes on to sponsor the tour, that our players, show how grateful they are and how important the sponsors are to allowing them to play. Because I think at some of the higher levels of golf where they're playing for multi-million-dollar purses, sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect. So, certainly the players have done a good job of connecting with sponsors through the years so that the sponsors, know that the players are appreciative and how important they are to obviously the overall mission of what we're trying to do with the Symetra Tour and, provide these players the opportunity to hopefully find their way onto the LPGA Tour.
Yeah, and I concur with that as well. I know from the few players we were able to speak with this year, I know that many of them, as you said, were very, very grateful. I mean, they were just excited just to get back out there and compete. That's what they love to do, and that's what they wanted to do. Just one last quick thing, and then Cindy, I'm going to pass it over to you for a few moments. But you mentioned about obviously having to travel to different places, and with each state sort of having their own restrictions and guidelines and so forth. Obviously presented some challenges as well, because it's not just when you're dealing with 50 different states, you're not dealing with the same criteria. Did you have to make adjustments, and did you have to sort of as tournaments were coming up in different areas, did you have to sort of revisit some of the protocols in case things had changed between the time things were booked and when the tournaments actually took place?
Yeah. I can't think of offline. The good, the sort of the good news, bad news is that the footprint of a Symetra Tour event in most cases, worked within whatever sort of the local guidelines were. So, obviously when we're playing, for example, I think back to California, when we were playing in California, they restricted, we had no use of the clubhouse whatsoever, could not go in the clubhouse. But, so players just had to make accommodation, so we'd put a box lunch out on the back patio, and then the players would go sit in their car and eat it, that kind of thing. So there were those sort of little bit sort of nuanced things. But for the most part, again, the footprint of a Symetra Tour event isn't such that it's so ominous where you've got, the TV crew in and of themselves is probably another, 50 people, and you got way more volunteers and all of that kind of stuff. So we could mostly, even with a couple cutbacks, work with inside the sort of the local guidelines just based on what the sort of the footprint of the Symetra Tour was. But it was certainly one of those where, when people, especially when we're going to play in California, I was getting calls from players the week before, and they say, how confident are you that we're going to play this tournament in California? And I said, well, ask me next Sunday, right? Like it was one of those things where it's like when we hand out the trophy, I'll know we've had the tournament. It was that sort of stress that was just always hanging over it, because you could be in the middle of the tournament and then they could say it's over. I mean, that obviously happened with some of the the men's basketball in college basketball. I think they were like in the middle of the Ivy League tournament. They just pulled them off the court, and sent them home. So you always kind of had that looming. In retrospect, you almost feel like almost silly to have worried about that, but at the time it seemed like a very real possibility that if a certain town or something had an outbreak, you'd be done. Mid-round, hey, it's noon on Friday. I don't care that you're winning the tournament. We got to leave. So, but all in all, it worked out, and we I think as you probably talked about at some point in this show, we now have a joint venture with our friends over on the Ladies European Tour, and I talk to them on a weekly basis. And whenever I'm feeling sorry for myself, I'm moving from state to state. Then I talk to Alex Armas, who's the commissioner of that tour, and she's trying to get people from country to country. So I stop feeling sorry for myself immediately.
Right. Well said. Cindy, go ahead.
The more you have to deal with, the stronger you get. And I believe, again, the blessing of COVID is look at how fast you can pivot. And I believe that it might make these young women appreciate and be grateful for what they have. Do you have any stories like that?
I think the one thing I will say is that, and this isn't quite answering your question, Cindy, but the one thing I find is that, and I was just at a sort of a virtual conference with a bunch of other event organizers, and one of the things that we found is that you start doing things that maybe just sheer inertia and momentum in the past hasn't let you do, but sort of because of COVID, you said, okay, we're finally going to do this, whatever it is, maybe just out of necessity. One thing that comes to mind is that you'll probably laugh at, Cindy, you'll laugh at this from sort of your LPGA days, but tee times for practice rounds. So on the Symetra Tour, and in some cases on the LPGA Tour, practice rounds have become a sort of a first come, first serve basis. So when, for example, the Pro-Am might play in the morning and you have practice rounds in the afternoon, that there's literally, I mean, there can be 50 bags lined up, right, to go off the first tee. It looks like when I grew up playing, municipal golf in New Jersey, it was, first come, first serve at 6 in the morning. And so, you had a 9:30 tee time because your bag was number 42 in line or something. But we went, in order to sort of create social distancing so we didn't have that crowding, our IT team here developed software so that the players could go on and book tee times, just like we all have. Like we've all been in this industry long enough to remember when there was no tee times and when there was tee times, and how that just sort of changed the dynamic. We just implemented that on the Symetra Tour this year because of the pandemic, and now that's going to carry over for the future. The players obviously love it. You don't have to sit on the tee for 2 hours when you're going to tee off. So there's little things like that I think, you're being forced, we've been forced to look at and do because of the pandemic, and you're like, gosh, that's crazy. We haven't done that for the last 10 years. So there's little things like that. As, as it relates to, stories for the players and things like that, I can't, I think when you look at, there's certain players, like one of the ones that comes to mind is Frida Kinshult, who won our tour championship, and that got her into the top 5, got her LPGA membership, and into the Women's Open. And I had played with her in the Pro-Am just about 3 weeks before that, and she was sort of hovering in sort of that mid-25. But she was when she turned pro coming out of Florida State, she was the number 1 player in the world as an amateur, and turned pro, I think, after her freshman year, and came out and was, playing decently, but not, if you're the number 1 amateur in the world, you probably expect to have more success on the Symetra Tour. So for her to break through and win, at the Tour Championship, which got her a card and things like that, and her mom was caddying for her, and it was on her bag. So, there's moments like that when you sort of look at the season, what a grind it was, and then you see how much that meant to her to have her mom on the bag. I mean,
oh, it looks like Mike got dropped, so we'll bring him on as soon as he calls back in. It looks like he must have been on a cell. It's very interesting, Cindy. When you hear some of the challenges that they had to, that they were faced with on the Symetra Tour, and obviously all the tours, but it sounds like they, like you said, they were very able to pivot very quickly when necessary.
Yeah, and again, you don't know what you've got until it's gone, and I just find it amazing what they were able to accomplish, and thank God the sponsors were on board with them. I mean, again, great job doing what you don't think you can.
Yeah. And that's a great point, really, Cindy, that you bring up, because, again, in years past, these young ladies, everything has sort of been status quo. They've known, for the most part, obviously some of the new ones coming out, are a little bit shaky because they're not sure what to expect. And we've talked to a few of them over the last several years. But for some of the more seasoned ones, that, they kind of get into, they know the routine once the season starts, what's going to happen, and so on and so forth. And, they're prepared for it. But this year it was difficult for a lot of, players, because they weren't really 100% sure what to expect. And, as Mike, mentioned, they played the first tournament, late February, early March. And we, of course, had the winter on the following week. And then all of a sudden it was virtually a complete shutdown. So, it says a lot, not only about the players, but it also says a lot about the sponsorship as well, that they recognize, that this is something of value to them and obviously to the young ladies as well. But hopefully Mike will be able to call back in. We'll see here in the next few minutes. We're getting kind of close to our midpoint anyways, but Mike, I'm not sure if you're able to hear us, but we'll stand by in the meantime.
I wonder how long he was talking before he knew he was gone.
Yeah, he may be still talking. Who knows? I'm sure he'll at some point figure it out. What I want to do is, because we are going to be getting close to our time, is I think when he comes back, Cindy, that we'll try to see what sort of 2021 is going to hold. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of similarities because it's just starting to ramp up again in some areas, and we'll see what they're going to do for moving forward in 2021. But we want to thank everybody, and something I didn't get a chance to mention in the beginning because we kind of just jumped right into it. This is going to be the last show for the 2020 season. And here's Mike. Let me bring him back on. I'll update everybody a little bit later on. Mike, welcome back. You got dropped.
Yeah, well, it's one of those you get on. I felt like, and I'm on a hard line too. That's the craziest thing. If I was driving through Florida, I apologize. I was talking, and then all of a sudden, I thought it was fantastic. I thought what I was saying was just so overwhelming and fantastic that maybe I would hear applause on the other end, and then it was just completely dead air. So I thought I wasn't quite sure what happened. So I'm not sure where I lost you or where I was in my rambling. So my apologies.
Not a problem. So Cindy, go ahead. I think we want to move on to onto the next year.
So talk about again, nobody knows, but we're going to pretend what's happening next year. Do you still have the same amount of events? When do you start? What's the plan right now?
Yeah, so as of now, we're planning we've put together a 20-event schedule, sort of a minimum of 20 events, and, we're hopefully, looking to start in that late February, early March time frame. So as of right now, I mean, the good news is that a lot of the places that we're playing early in the year, I was actually with a couple of players yesterday, and our second event on the schedule right now is an event in California. And then they said to me, oh gosh, with our second event being in California, do you think we're going to play that? And I said, well, the good news is we actually played it, whatever it was, 3 months ago. So we've actually been through, we played that exact course in that, that same town. We've worked with local health officials, et cetera, and we've run a safe event. So we obviously can't, if the governor, drops some sort of heavier mandate or whatever the case might be, that may preclude us, but we've at least got a track record with the local health officials where they can say, oh, they've done this before and they did a good job and everybody stayed safe and healthy and we didn't have an outbreak and all that stuff. So currently we're planning to play, the sort of at least the 20 event schedule that we started with, plan to start with next year and finish as we always do other than this year, with the first week in October with the Tour Championship here in Daytona. So we fully expect this year's season to look like this past year was supposed to. We have testing in place, like we've at least budgeted or planned to have the advanced testing that we've done on the Symetra Tour in place through June. Hopefully, with the vaccines coming out yesterday, maybe that will change that dynamic. But we wanted to be conservative, and we plan to sort of be in the same protocols and things that we were this year, at least through June. But if that lifts earlier, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think that, regardless, obviously we're all hoping that this, these rounds of vaccine are going to be able to sort of nip it in the butt. But it's always, I think, better safe than sorry to continue on with the protocols. I mean, everybody's, doing what they can. And I think the sooner that we're able to, move this down the road, and permanently, the better it is. But we can't really let our guard down. It's been an interesting year, as I said earlier, for golf, and we're always very grateful to do our part to help with the Symetra Tour. We've enjoyed for several years now having these young ladies come on, and I'll tell you, I think Cindy would concur, what a breath of fresh air. Many of them come on here very enthusiastic, and even this season, despite all that's going on, many of them were really upbeat and excited and just wanting to get out there and play. And you and the rest of the group at that are involved with the Symetra Tour should be very proud of a great job that you guys have done this season.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it wasn't taught, and as Cindy a little bit alluded to, you work harder and you sort of, to do all of these, things, and it's sometimes more harder the work. You don't enjoy it so much at the time, but it's a little bit more rewarding, and I'm certainly glad. We're fortunate to have a great bunch of young ladies who are, all they're doing is chasing their dreams, and I find them to be extremely grateful for the opportunities that we're providing, and we're obviously very grateful to you and folks like yourselves who are doing everything you can to highlight what these young ladies are doing, because in many cases, as we saw with, Sophia Popov, she was, just one opportunity away from being a Symetra Tour member, and then, a week later, she's a major champion on the LPGA Tour. So the level of talent out here is just first class, and it's just we certainly appreciate you all shining a light on them.
Well, we're happy to do that. And we'll continue to do that, Mike, into the next season as well. We look forward to it, and hopefully, the restrictions will start to ease up, and you'll be able to get all of those events in, and we look forward to celebrating with each and every one of the winners. And unfortunately, Mike, we gotta let you go. We again apologize that you got cut off a little bit short, but we're gonna have you come back on sometime early in the season, maybe just to sort of kick off the new season as well. We'll hope you come back and join us. But we appreciate you spending some time and giving us a little bit of a recap of this past season. And again, great job. I'm not going to wish you to break a leg, because I know that you're going skiing, and I don't want to forecast any future tragedies. So have fun, have a happy and safe holiday, and thank you for all that you do. And we appreciate the relationship developed with your group.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. You all both also have a great holiday season, New Year. We'll look forward to a brighter 2021 and catching up with hopefully some good news then.
Great.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Mike Nichols, Chief Business Officer of the LPGA Symetra Tour. We just got a minute here, and then we'll bring on Marvol. But, it just really goes to show you, as you said, Cindy, just how really able this industry, even during a difficult time. I mean, the challenges that they were faced with, to be able to pivot so quickly and even get 10 events in, which is, half of what they typically would, but, they're able to do that. So kudos to Mike and the rest of the team at Symetra. Just before we bring up Marvol, I just want to, as I was starting to say before he came back on, I wanted to give him a moment to finish up his thoughts. This is going to be our last show, as I was starting to say, for 2020. We'll be taking an extended break, not just through the holidays, but the month of January as well, as we get ready and gear up with some new guests for next year. We've already got some bookings. And we were going to be scheduled for the first week of February, but it's going to look like the second week now that we'll be coming on. And keep tuned to social media. We'll update you as we go along. But we'll be starting back up in February of 2021 with a new schedule here on the Women of Golf. So we hope you continue to stay tuned. And don't forget, you can go to blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf at any time throughout the holidays. Of any shows that you may have missed, you can go back and check them out. But we want to thank you for a great season. All right, our very special guest joining us on the second half is Marvol Barnard. She is the LPGA's national president, and she's been around golf for many, many years, an accomplished player, but also a great professional and a great leader in the women's organization. So, Cindy, let's welcome our very special guest back. She was here earlier in the season, Marvol Barnard.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you two today?
We're doing great. How are you? You're up awful early.
I know. I've been up even earlier watching the sunrise.
Good for you.
No, I'm
So
dedicated
Ted,
to whatever you need, Cindy. So.
Oh, thank you. We love you for that. So tell Ted what we did last night, because I think it's pretty cool.
Oh, my gosh. It was so fun. It was our end of the season town hall for the LPGA, and this, is sort of a product of social distancing and COVID and all that, where we're moving so many things to virtual. But during my time as president, it's important to me that we report to the members what's been done on their behalf and for them. And And so we decided to do that in the form of a town hall. And prior to the national town hall, where all of our members were invited, each section held their own meet and greet ahead of time. And I was on my own section's meet and greet here in the central section and wasn't able to get on any others, but I heard they were wonderful all across the country. And then we had our national call and had a special guest, Mike Wan, came on to talk about all things LPGA, but it was just really fun. It was fun to see faces that we haven't seen all year, and it was just exhilarating for me to hear from each committee and each committee head on what all has happened during, an extremely challenging year. So I really felt that our members and our committees and our executive committee, which Cindy's a huge part of, stepped it up and made changes and pivoted. I love that word, Cindy. You use that a lot about pivoting and not only pivoting, but pivoting toward excellence. And I think that's what our organization did this year.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and it has been challenging, Marvol, and for so many people, and the LPGA organization has done, I think, a phenomenal job over the years, and particularly this season having to deal with this. And you mentioned about a lot of virtual things going on. What were some of the things? What's been some of the feedback from some of the members this year on things that they've had to do in order to make changes, and just what has been some sort of the overall feeling? Obviously, everybody's meeting different challenges depending on where they are, but what's been some of the feedback from some of the members?
Well, it's interesting, on the member level, both as members of the organization and being able to meet virtually in certain settings has been extremely positive. And then for individual members who are out in the field working and teaching, everyone shared their best practices and shared their ideas. Some people were coming up with documents for clients to sign prior to lessons and requiring masks and so on. And so our members were getting on Facebook and sharing what they were doing in their own workplaces, which was really helpful. It's obviously uncharted waters for everyone. And so we were all looking to share ideas there. But then on the membership level, we have a committee, it's called Media and Marketing, and they came up with some events early on in this whole thing. I'm going to say early summer, maybe even prior to that, where they did some Facebook Live events, and our members who are experts in their field, say in junior golf, one of our very first Facebook Lives was something that your juniors could do in the house without golf clubs, but golf related. And they were so well received and so fun. And so the membership right away got energized by these. And we had more and more members stepping up to participate. And then last night just felt, I don't know, Cindy, if you felt this way, but it felt like a culmination of that. We came through and we persevered and we took it online, and last night was just a celebration of everything that we had gotten done this year.
It was awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Cindy, go ahead.
So what do we got cooking for 2021?
Well, more of the same and better. I think now that we've got everybody thinking a little differently, what can we do in 2021? One of our most successful endeavors this last year that I think everyone should be so proud of is the virtual scramble. And as you recall, Cindy, it came from a couple of members who were really disappointed that they couldn't bring teams to the National Pro-Am, which had been canceled. And they came up with the idea of a virtual Pro-Am. So all across the country, LPGA professionals and LPGA amateurs created teams and played and uploaded scores and pictures on Instagram. And we raised $60,000 that way in a really pretty short period of time. So we take something like that, we look at the possibilities there, and what can we do that would be similar, fundraising and fundraising. And we've got an idea in the hopper, not ready for publication just yet, but another good idea coming out for our members and perhaps the amateurs as well. So just dreaming bigger all the time.
Awesome.
Incredible. Yeah, that's incredible. The women of the LPGA just never cease to amaze me at just how creative so many of them are. What a great idea, to have a virtual event. If you can't do the real thing for obvious reasons, let's do the next best thing and create a different type of event. I think that's fantastic, and obviously being able to raise that kind of funds too is just a testament to all the hard work that all of you ladies do, and I applaud you for that. So let's talk a little bit about virtual. Many golf professionals have, for the last several years, as technology changes, has already sort of developed an online platform of some sort, whether it be through YouTube videos, Instagram, that sort of thing, Facebook Live, as you mentioned. Do you think that it's going to even be a bigger presence in the golf industry now as a result of this? Is this going to be sort of an after effect because of what we've been dealing with, that more and more are going to say, you know what, we've had to make these changes, and that doesn't mean we're going to get away from what we normally traditionally have done, but do you think this is going to become bigger and even better now that people have gone to the trouble of having to set a lot of this up now? Do you think this is going to be trending more in the years to come?
I really do, and I think it's a situation where we're going to take the best of both worlds and make it better. I think about this a lot, about what the impact of online lessons, for example, and virtual meetings, how will that impact specifically our organization? One of the things that makes us is our testing processes for our teachers, and we do that in person, and we want to make sure that those who are coming out being called LPGA professionals are delivering the best product, and that we are teaching our teachers well. So a fear that I had is losing the in-person and one-to-one component and seminars. There's no question that when you go to a seminar or a conference, part of the fun is meeting other people and networking. So initially I was somewhat fearful of losing that, but as we move into the new world, I see that it enhances it. The ability to meet virtually increases the possibilities for down the road when we can meet back in person. And I think in the golf industry, the online presence, the online teaching, there's no substitute. Everybody plays golf on the golf course. So we'll never lose the in-person component there, but I think it can make both better.
Yeah, I share some of the same thoughts that you do, and I think the best way to approach it is to find a happy balance. I think as I mentioned, as technology changes, we're seeing opportunities come out of that. But I think we also want to make sure that we keep it balanced, so that because people do miss that sort of personal relationships that are developed, not just at your level, but at the members' level at the various courses. Cindy, go ahead.
I've never met anyone so motivated, if you will, to really help other people than you.
Oh, that's a very nice thing to say. Cindy,
true.
Just when you said that, when I joined the LPGA, I took up golf later in life, and I remember so vividly being at the playing ability test site, and it was prior to play. I think we were having breakfast, or it must have been the day before because I was too nervous to eat the day of, but I was looking over at all the LPGA professionals who were there for the test site and the teachers who were grading the new teachers and so on, and everyone was so professional and so I just thought to myself, I want so badly to be part of that. And when I blessedly passed my testing and went through the program, I have been in love with this organization from day one, and I want everyone to love it. And I want my students to love it. I want our members to get everything possible out of it. And, that's my motivation. I see so many possibilities for our organization and with our organization. One of the things that's really cool right now are the amateurs. There's a great connection now we have with women all across the country and the growth possibilities there. And so that's what drives me. I want everyone to love us.
Well, wow, you are awesome. That's all.
I believe. Yeah, I believe they do, Cindy. And, I think that I agree with you. I think Marvol has done a phenomenal job, and you can definitely hear that that you have a lot of passion in your voice when you talk about the LPGA organization. And obviously, you've done a great job as their national president. Let me just ask you, when it comes to the teaching side of things, I know that you're out in Arizona. Cindy mentioned you're up early, so we appreciate that. What have you done, or what things have you changed in your own style this season? What are some of the things that you've done to make it not just interesting, but to sort of make up for obviously some difficult situations? How have you had to adapt? What have you done, in other words, to adapt to sort of the current environment?
That's a great question. Early on, I had a big event scheduled that just when the pandemic was really starting to get going, and there was so much uncertainty about should I cancel, is canceling something down the road, and then boom, it all happened. And so I had to talk about pivoting. So my business effectively shut down early on there, but it was important to me to set a good example. I almost hate to term it that way because that wasn't why I did it, but a good example in my community and in my organization and, with my own students, that I took it seriously and their safety was top of mind. And so what I did when I started back up, because it's so hot here in the summer, I didn't teach all summer, but this fall when I started to ramp back up, I cut down my group sizes. We're very careful about social distancing and so on, but despite everyone's best efforts, it's here. And we went from this summer not knowing anyone who even knew anyone who had it to, now it's in our community. So recently, in the last few weeks, I've had a couple of students from groups be diagnosed, and so again I've stopped everything and I'm home now for another week just to be really careful. But I think that's the point, is you have to set the example. I don't want to be out there teaching when I've been around people who have been diagnosed, and what's been so interesting is that when I send my emails out to my peeps and tell them, hey, we're taking a little break here, the 100% gratitude that comes back. People are grateful that we are being careful. So that's the main thing, is just being really cognizant of safety and of my role here in the community and in the industry.
It's interesting because, in Arizona, obviously many parts of Arizona is much like Florida. You have a large senior population because it's a popular area for people to retire. Was there a lot of concern from some of the members, from your experience, on what they should or shouldn't do? Not so much with adapting to whatever regulations may have been in place, but was there a lot of general concern throughout this last year?
Well, at our facility, the sentiment and the feeling I get from, we're a public facility, so the players and the staff and the general management there felt like we were all in this together. And again, there's no playbook, no manual where you can go to page 10 to look up what to do now. So they were very careful at our facility, and then our players were the same. You know, everyone was taking precautions. Now I see it just really, really big time. Everybody's being very careful. So it felt like a partnership, and concerns, yes, but I think there was a feeling that golf was probably a safe place. You know, we were out and you're staying away from people. We went to one person per cart and did all the precautions. And so I just feel like we did feel partnership with our members or with our clients and our students.
Yeah, I think that sentiment was shared, virtually everywhere. And as Cindy and I have mentioned in the past, this past season, that, golf has really seen an increase in playability just by virtue of the fact that it kind of has a built-in social distancing. So the industry has been very fortunate in that. And I think a lot of the members, and not only of the different clubs, but also, many of the LPGA professionals who head up those clubs, I think have done a great job in really trying to ease a lot of the members and players to be able to come out and still have some fun and enjoy it and play this great game. Cindy, go ahead.
So what besides I want to be part of that drives you?
You're a tricky one, Cindy. I don't know. I guess I'm a forward-thinking person, and I'm a positive, looking for opportunities all the time. I know you're exactly the same. I love how you roll. You're always looking for better and how you can improve yourself and your clients' lives. And I just think there's a real energy that comes from that. It wakes me up at night. I get up in the morning thinking about it, and I love marketing. I kind of wish I could go back and start over and be a marketing major, because I love inspiring people, and I love to be inspired myself. And so, I could ask you the same question, Cindy. What drives you? You're the same. You are a person who is. There's never closed doors in front of you, and we all feed off that. We get great ideas from you, and that's what I love about it, the energy that comes.
That was good. I'm trying to trip you up. Can you tell?
I know. I just turned it right back on you. I'm trying to be like you.
Good job. Ted, go.
Oh, Marvol, I couldn't agree more. Cindy, we joke a lot on the show. She often refers to herself as spinning plates and doing so many, different things. But you're exactly right. And I think in this industry, really in any industry, you have to be, creative, and sometimes really, and I hate to use this analogy because everybody always says this, but you have to kind of think outside of the box a little bit. When you're putting ideas together, and I think the more different things that you try, and certainly some are not going to succeed, but you're going to find, as they say, a diamond in the rough. And that's one thing. Obviously I don't know you as well as Cindy does, but I get the impression the same as she does, and I know Cindy is for sure. Somebody that just believes in let's getting out there and let's do what we can to not just help people on the lesson tee, but help people in general. And I think that's a wonderful quality to have, and that's something that really is quite often needed. So as you look forward to, 2021, a new season, we know there's going to be some challenges initially out of the start, and you've already mentioned some things that you want to do. What do you really want to see happen as the LPGA organization moves forward? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I'd love to see our growth continue. We have a new section president, a new member of our executive committee who is in charge of member growth, the member growth committee. And, growth comes from satisfied members telling other members how great the organization is. And that's one of my dreams, is that events like last night, last night we had probably a record number of people on our national call. And that, to me, tells me that we're moving in the right direction, that we're inspiring our existing members, and then happy members are going to recruit others. There's nothing new under the sun there. If you're a member of a club and you love your club, you want to tell everyone about it. And pretty soon you have growth at your club. So that's what I look at. And it's not just numbers in the LPGA. It's everything we bring to the table. People like Cindy Miller who are touching so many people and inspiring business women and speaking to the business community. It's more than just golf. We hear that all the time, but our organization has an opportunity not only in golf but in the world and what we can do. So that, seeing the passion last night, to me tells me we're moving in the right direction, and I want to just do more of the same. I want to find ways to connect with our members where they are. I want them to bring us more ideas like the virtual Pro-Am, and I want the LPGA to be a force in a really wonderful industry.
I think that's a great vision to have. So we have just roughly about 10 minutes left, so I thought what would be kind of interesting, since you both are kind of in the same platform, and that what I thought would be kind of interesting is for each of you, Cindy and Marvol, to share a story about each other, something about the other person, whatever that may be. You obviously have got to know each other over the years. So, Marvol, why don't you start? Is there a particular story that you have a fond memory of Cindy, and then Cindy, I'll give you an opportunity to share one.
I certainly do. It's funny how when you get asked a question, your brain will serve something up. And what comes right to my mind is the first time I ever saw Cindy speak. I was at a conference, and there were breakout rooms, and you could choose who you were going to go listen to. And Cindy was on a panel, and I'm sorry to say to the other people that were on the panel, I don't remember who they were. But I remember Cindy, and Cindy was so funny and so I loved her story. She told her story, and her story with her husband and her tour time, and it was so impactful to me to watch this woman who was so clearly comfortable in her own skin and very professional, very professionally dressed, and I just was so drawn to her. And so from then on, I would see her at events, and I would always say hi, and she was always busy. She had her notebook and busy, but always had time for me, always knew me, and I've looked up to her for so long. And so now she's the same. She dresses impeccably. She is a hard charger. She asked me the other day how I would describe her, and I said, you are a go-getter. And a little bit of an old-fashioned term, but that's someone who has just taken life and grabbed a hold of it, and she's definitely a role model to me.
I couldn't agree more. What a great story. Yeah, that's why. Good thing
Cindy,
we have this recording.
Better be good.
Yeah, so Cindy, go ahead. The floodgates are open. Have at it.
I don't have a specific story, but I can be my own bratty self. And it's kind of like when you've been around the block forever and you're one of the old guards, which I kind of am because I've been around forever. When I first saw her, I'm like, who the hell is this woman, right? And where did she come from? And how long has she played? And what has she done? And, women are brats. And my good friend Liz Cooper, it's kind of like how somebody vouches for somebody. My good friend Liz Cooper absolutely loves Marvol. So I'm kind of like, okay, open up your mind and figure out who this woman is. Well, I got to tell you that she is the most loving, caring, stern person who knows what she's doing, who is passionate about what she does, who has taught me many lessons, and I just really, really admire her. And I don't know that everyone cherishes her leadership like they should. Now, I must tell you, one of the greatest compliments I think she might have gotten was last night when Mike Wan ended the meeting in our town hall and said the wisdom that comes out of this woman's mouth is amazing. So I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for your caring and your giving and for your friendship. You're awesome.
Thank you. That's very, very nice of you to say. Yeah, that was very flattering when Mike said the things he said. I was, very taken aback. He's so observant. You just never know. He said something about me on the board there, and I thought, wow, that's an interesting observation. So.
Right? I totally agree.
I
Ted,
think
where'd you go?
No, I'm still here. I'm listening. What's really interesting about that is, obviously you both have a mutual respect for one another and a kinship, if you will, of sorts. And I think, again, it goes to what I said earlier is a testament to the LPGA organization. And that's, one of the reasons I had the pleasure, and Marvol, I don't know if we shared this to you the earlier this year when you were on, but Cindy and I, and she still doubts this, but we're going into our 8th season next year with the Women of Golf that we've been co-hosting together. And this past January at the PGA merchandise show in Orlando is the first time that Cindy and I have actually met face to face. We had never met in person before, and which is really interesting because we've had many guests over the years on the show, and they've said, oh, you guys do a great job, and so on and so forth. And I believe, and I don't remember the young lady's name, but last December, Cindy, we had one of our final guests that worked at the Golf Channel, and you had shared the fact that we hadn't met. She said, well, you got to make a point of meeting at the PGA show. So we met for, a few moments. We, as you mentioned earlier, Marvol, Cindy's, busy and doing a lot of things, but we made a point of meeting, and I met her husband, Alan, of course. And that was the first time we've met, and we've been doing the show for 7 years.
That amazes me. Congratulations on your longevity with this show. That's really great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. What's really fun, and just to share one other quick side note, is when I started this show back 7 years ago, I had actually reached out to Cindy before it went live on air, and my agenda at that time, because I didn't know her personally, but I knew of her and knew of her accomplishments, and I actually reached out to her as a guest, as a potential guest, and there was a little bit of a pause. Cindy may or may not recall this, but there was a little bit of a pause on the phone call, and she said to me, she said, if this wouldn't be too forward of me, she said, I would really like to maybe
There's no way I said if this isn't too forward. I would have just said it.
No, I'm just trying to
I'm
say it down.
not classy enough to do that.
But you get my point. Yeah, I was trying to be polite, but anyways, yeah, she just said, I'd love to, she, and about it, and, I'd watched her when she was on the Big Break and so forth, and some years back, and I thought to myself, why not? And like anything, you start out a little bit and that, but she has really been a blessing to this show. She's not only brought so many great guests to the show from the LPGA and others in the business world, but she just brings a lot of class and a lot of fun. And I could not imagine myself doing this program, number one, on my own, without having her with me here. So I concur with everything that you said, Marvol, about her. She's just a wonderful, a hardworking individual and just a warm spirit. And, she can be a little pushy, but but I've gotten used to it over 7 years.
It's a great partnership. You guys are doing a wonderful job.
Well,
Thank
we appreciate
you, honey.
that.
We're so glad you decided to join us today. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be invited. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're going to have you back on sometime in the new year as well. We would love to have you come back on, and hopefully much of what's going on right now around the world is going to be getting better. We're obviously excited about the vaccines that are coming out, and hopefully we'll begin to start getting back to some sort of normalcy. So we will definitely have you back on, Marvol, but we appreciate you joining us this morning and sharing some of your thoughts and insight, not only in the LPGA organization, but also about your friend Cindy Miller. Very interesting story that you shared. So thank you very much for joining us. Have a safe and happy holiday, and we really appreciate you giving up your time this morning.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays to the two of you.
You too, honey. Thanks.
Too. All right. Bye-bye. What a great, I guess in a sense, almost an ambassador of the game. I mean, obviously I know she's the national president, but you're right. She does have a passion, just like you do, and I mean this sincerely. I know we joke a lot, but you really do, Cindy, and I admire that, and you have taught me a lot, even though it's just on the air many times, but even sometimes in our phone calls, just things that you'll say, and you're very inspirational, and you've just been a wonderful person to have alongside, and I look forward to a new season with you, which reminds me, I just double-checked the date. As I said, there's going to be a slight change, but our first show coming back in 2021 will be February the
February
our show, so we're on a long break as we get ready and gear up. I'm sorry, February 9th. February 9th will be the first show back.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we will look forward to having everybody on. We're taking a long break. We want to wish everybody a happy holiday and a safe new year, and let's hope that we can move forward from this pandemic and just get back to, as I said, a normalcy. But I want to take the opportunity to thank all of the listeners for faithfully tuning in, and I want to particularly thank my co-host, LPGA professional Cindy Miller. Thank you, Cindy, for all that you do. God bless you, sweetheart, and I look forward to working with you again next season on the show.
Thanks, honey. Same to you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at TedandBuckCEO and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.